Depression has been a major theme in my life as well as the majority of my family's lives. I've watched it consume my parents, my brother, my friends. I've been in some very dark places, stemming from the insecurities I've had since I was a little kid. Growing up, all I wanted was for people to like me. I wanted to make good impressions. I wanted to be friends with everyone. I wanted to be that goofball kid that everybody loved. As I started to get older, I became more aware, and I started to obsess over what everybody thought about me. I started becoming very self-critical, and the only thing I could focus on was what people thought about me. Around this time in junior high, I started really struggling with my weight. I hated the way I looked, I envied the skinny kids, and I just wanted to be like everyone else. Pretty soon, I dreaded going to school every day because I was so stressed out about what people saw me as. This carried on through my sophomore year. By that summer, I was the heaviest I've ever been, as well as the lowest I'd ever been. My self-esteem was completely gone. I searched for ways to cope, but I had no idea how. I'd watched many of my friends and family turn to things like alcohol, drugs, pornography, and I was very close to going down that road of self-medication. The summer of 2018, full of my friends encouraged me to get a gym membership with them. I was absolutely sick and tired of hating myself. I hated the way I looked, and I was at rock bottom. So I got the gym membership, and it ended up being one of the best decisions I've ever made. That summer, I dropped 40 pounds, and I found myself monumentally more happy. I was eating right, and I was exercising daily. Over the past 2 years, I found a huge correlation between a healthy physical life and a healthy mental life. I've had my ups and downs, and I've had phases of healthy and unhealthy lifestyles. I noticed a pattern. This year, I wanted to explore how different coping mechanisms worked. I wanted to see how a beneficial, healthy coping mechanism could benefit your brain versus the effects of dangerous, unhealthy coping mechanisms. I believe nutrition is a natural way for God to help, a natural way that God gave us to help our mental health. A very common verse that I would like to use for this capstone is 1 Corinthians 6:19, which says, "Do you not know that your bodies are temples of the Holy Spirit who is in you, whom you have received from God?" In this chapter, Paul is talking about the Corinthians pertaining to their sexual immorality. However, I believe this applies to many different aspects of our lives. God gave us these bodies to nourish and take care of. First, I set out to understand the issues with using drugs and alcohol as coping mechanisms. Unhealthy coping mechanisms can be detrimental and extremely addictive. I spoke to Keith Hughes, a clinical psychiatrist in Denver. We talked a lot about why people get addicted to things such as marijuana and alcohol, especially people with depression and anxiety. He gave me an analogy that really stuck with me. He said, when marijuana is used for health, like anxiety, for instance, it hits the anxiety right away. However, because of the nature of the drug, it also has a way of propelling anxiety to be much worse later. It has a real boomerang effect. Then you want to smoke more. Depending on the person, it can also enhance paranoia. Now, when you have the paranoia, that's amping up your anxiety again. People generally think that that marijuana is a non-addictive drug and they can quit anytime. The issue with that is when you start using it to medicate your depression or anxiety, you're going to need it again once the high is over. It turns into a vicious cycle that's really hard to get out of. The more the cycle goes on, the more you need it, the worse the anxiety gets. Keith told me that he has patients calling him in the middle of the night, crying hysterically because they were feared for their life. People can quit smoking weed at any time because of the lack of withdrawals, unlike other substances. What they don't realize is that the addiction is mental rather than physical, and that's why it's so hard to quit. Mental addictions take hold of your emotions. When someone uses a substance to come over their depression, over time it will train their body to produce happy chemicals when they're on that high, and only on that high. We also talked about the effects of marijuana short-term and long-term, especially on teens and young adults. Pot is a depressant, meaning it lowers the stimulation to the brain. It creates a lack of motivation and lethargy, even towards things that people are passionate about. The passion becomes lukewarm. Keith said, it changes people's desires. This actually hit me really hard. Pot is so much more powerful than people think. It becomes harder to concentrate. It becomes harder to concentrate and remember things. When abused over and over again, it can become more permanent. Many people who had notable substance abuse in their childhood years have delayed brain growth. Keith called it arrested development. The THC knocks down neurons that connect your brain and put all the pieces together. When you mature, you start to understand more about the world. Your problem solving is much more developed and it changes you. However, pot slows down maturity intensely. Pot users take longer to grow into full people, and it carries on into their 30s and 40s. The effects of marijuana can be detrimental towards the growth of young people. Finding healthy ways to stay busy and coping with your depression is important, especially in adolescence. I really liked what Keith had to say. He opened my eyes a lot about addiction and the nature of humanity, not only relating to drugs, but to the little things like how we deal with our problems and how we think about them. We have to be careful about the things we turn to help us cope with everyday difficulties. I learned a lot about the importance of healthy coping mechanisms. It can be a difference maker in people's lives. I think the way we get through things is a huge difference maker in people's lives. Do you decide to let go and find ways to numb yourself through the pain? Do you take the easy road and ignore the spiritual battle to avoid the time and effort? Or do you work hard and push yourself to fight through whatever it is you're going through? Perseverance is a staple in working out. Once you start to feel pain, that's when you start to grow your muscles. You only better yourself if you push yourself past your limit. This is what my second semester was all about. I wanted to observe what happened when I stayed disciplined to my health compared to when I broke down. I decided to conduct an experiment on the direct connection between my nutritional decisions and my mental health. For 3 weeks, I tracked my calorie intake, my emotions, and my exercise. I started the experiment on a very good note. The first week, I was eager to stay on track with my diet plan. I exercised for 2 or 3 more hours a day, consumed the right amounts of food, and recorded everything to the T. Even within the first couple days, I felt a huge change in myself. I had so much more energy and motivation to do things and go out and to talk to people. My confidence was propelled, and I was happy. As the experiment went on, I faced some adversity. I had some long days, and in my stress and weariness, I folded and walked away from my plan. I got busy and stopped exercising. I got lazy and stopped putting in the effort to search for healthy options. As the days went on and I fell into this cycle, I became increasingly introverted and demotivated. I was extremely self-conscious and isolated. I felt like I was a completely different person. It really gave me a perspective on how I can have better days and how much better quality of life is when supported by good, healthy decisions. I also realized how difficult it is to stay on track when you face adversity, and when you start to get busy, and when things are just a part of life. During this time, I also attended CrossFit classes at Backcountry CrossFit. On my first day, I walked in and the instructor told us we had a 7-minute circuit for the day and then we'd be done with the workout. I thought this will be easy, I'll be out in 10 minutes, and I'm so glad that I chose this for my experience. However, I was sadly mistaken. It turned out to be one of the most brutal workouts I had ever been a part of. In the moment, I really regretted going to CrossFit, but after it was all over, I was sitting in my car and I felt this rush of energy come over me. It made me feel so motivated and so productive. At this point, it was clear to me that there was a distinct connection between my fitness and my mental health, and I wanted to learn a little bit more about the science behind it. As it turns out, exercise can affect a variety of different aspects of our lives, including depression and anxiety. I read a book this semester called Spark about how exercise can improve your life. In this book, John Rady, a clinical psychiatric professor at Harvard Medical School, explains how working out produces proteins that travel through the bloodstream and into the brain, where they play a pivotal role in the mechanisms of our highest thought processes. When we work out, our body releases endorphins that interact with the brain to reduce stress and pain. Scientifically, exercise makes you feel better. Rady cites a scientific experiment with chronically stressed rats. Scientists found that activity makes the hippocampus grow back in its pre-shriveled state. There's nothing in medicine that can do that. Exercise can also benefit things like your memory and your problem solving. A body in motion gets blood and chemicals flowing through the brain that a body at rest just can't get. Exercise is medicine. So why is this all important? For me personally, exercise was God's way of getting me out of a very deep, dark hole. I hated myself and I didn't know how to change. He sent me a couple of strong, wise friends that would help guide me out of my depression and teach me how to lead a healthier life. However, this is why everyone should care about nutrition. Choosing a healthy lifestyle builds virtue. Every day we make small little decisions about our health, on what we choose to put on our bodies, and how we choose to work those bodies. Every morning there's a choice between fruit and Cinnamon Toast Crunch. Obviously, it will never be easy to choose the fruit, but making that healthier decision every morning over time will make you feel better. Making the decision to exercise every day over time will make you stronger. It builds perseverance and discipline. However, making the unhealthy decisions will over time break you down. This principle applies to life itself. Every day we make small, seemingly unimportant decisions about the way we carry ourselves. Over time, these small decisions become habit, and habit turns into virtue or vice. I can recall several occasions where Mr. Spector emphasized the habits we develop now we will carry through the rest of our lives, and they will become extremely difficult to break. So they ought to be virtuous. When depression hits, or when you feel like you're in an impossible situation, you can choose vice or virtue. You can choose short-term band-aid solutions to forget about your problems and have them bite you back in the long term. Or you can choose to face them head on and cope with them in healthy ways that will benefit you in the long run. Every decision matters, no matter how big or small. It will always have a long-term effect, so make every decision with diligence.